This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
Now, Ross Kaminsky.
Come on, man.
On Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
The only way to spare more pain and more loss, the only way. These millstones no longer mark our national mourning. These milestones, I should say, no longer mark our national mourning.
I actually heard that when he said it a couple of days ago. I'm not sure exactly why you played that, like for me being back at work.
Well, we were mourning your absence.
At first, I think he said something along the lines of, or was going down the line before he went off the line, of no stone unturned or something like that. And I thought you were speculating as to whether I had kidney stones or gallstones or something like. See, I thought you were doing some kind of stone thing there. So first, let me just say that I was out for 2 days, thanks to all of you who got in touch asking if I'm okay. I'm feeling pretty good now. I think I'm on the mend, and I really appreciate everyone who asked how I was doing. My wife, my lovely bride, Kristen, often says to me that she feels that one sign of getting older is when you sit around talking about your ailments. And she does not want to do that. She doesn't want to sit around talking about her ailments. She doesn't have very many. She doesn't want me sitting around talking about my ailments. And I got to say, nobody does ailment talk better than old Jewish men. Nobody can kvetch like my grandparents. and I am not yet my grandparents, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. I guess I'll give you like the 20-second version or something. We thought I potentially had some kind of structural issue going on in my abdomen, my gut, intestinal blockage, something like that. All the tests came back normal. I was actually in the hospital for a little while, but not overnight. On Tuesday, all the tests came back normal, and now we're thinking maybe it's just this unusual kind of infection that. So I'm on antibiotics, and I'm feeling a lot better. And I wouldn't say I'm 100%, but I'd say I'm close to 90%. Whereas, Monday morning, where John Caldera heroically jumped in for me to do the last hour of the show, and then he did Tuesday and Wednesday's shows as well. I would say Monday at 9 a.m. I think I felt like I was 20%. I was really, really struggling. I think I'm around 90% now, and I probably could have worked yesterday. In fact, I really wanted to work yesterday, and my program director, Tim, said, no, you were in the hospital. You will take one more day off, even if you feel like you could work. And I was a little mad, actually, but his heart's in the right place, and it was probably the right call for me to just have one more day. But I missed you, and I'm glad to be back having a conversation with you again this morning. So there we go. There's obviously a lot going on. Oh, well, obviously the snow's going on. The initial predictions for around my house, and I'm kind of southwest Denver area, the original predictions that I had seen were 4 to 5 inches of snow. And several months ago, I bought a snowblower on Craigslist, because I don't even need to finish that sentence. If you know me well enough, you know why. But I got a really good Cub Cadet, gasoline, pretty big snowblower, and it's awesome. And today was my first chance to use it. So I woke up real early. And got out there. I got up about, 4:05, which is a little earlier than I normally wake up. It shouldn't be around, a non-prime number like that. 4:07, is that prime? Maybe. And I did the whole snowblowing thing, and I cleaned out the area in front of the garage. So Kristen could get out taking the kids to school today, and it turns out the kids don't have school today. Actually, that reminds me, if you have kids in school, definitely go to any of your favorite local news websites. If you're anywhere around Denver, you could check the Denver Post or KDVR.com or 9 News, and they'll all have these big lists. But I'll give you a couple. It looks like Adams County is pretty much closed today. Douglas County is closed today. Cherry Creek School District is closed today. A bunch of private schools like Colorado Academy and St. Mary's and stuff like that are closed today. Littleton Public Schools are closed. And I'm not giving you the definitive list, okay? Just go online and check your own district. There are some, Jefferson County looks like online classes only. I guess I'll mention that one because it's big. Some of the other ones are delayed and so on, but go check that yourselves. Denver Public Schools delayed 2 hours and not closed. So anyway, I got out there and I did all the snow blowing, and it's a very satisfying thing running a power tool at 4:30 in the morning and clearing out the driveway and then driving out to come to the station. I could have done the show from home, but I prefer doing it here at the station. And so, yeah, be careful out there if you need to drive. But if you're thinking that it's about school, make sure you just go online and see whether there still is school today or whether, and if there is, whether it's on time. And like I said, most of these big local news outlets will have all of that information for you. All right, we got a lot to do today. We got some interesting guests. We're going to do some science, which I usually do on Fridays, but we're going to do some science with CU physics professor Paul Beal a little bit later in the show around 7:35, talking about the Earth's magnetic field. We've got Glenn Roper, who's actually an attorney for the Pacific Legal Foundation, but based here in Colorado. You may recall the story that I've mentioned a couple times on the show about a provision in Colorado's coronavirus relief spending plan that allocated money to minority-owned businesses, but not to white-owned businesses, at least in this part of the plan. And when it became clear that they were going to be sued and lose because it's obviously illegal, the legislature, I guess it was early, let's see, was it early this year, late last year? Changed the law to try to make it less susceptible to a lawsuit, but apparently they didn't change it enough because Pacific Legal Foundation is representing Etienne Hardra, who's a barbershop owner in Colorado Springs, who is suing the state, and we're going to talk with him. And then our first guest, less than an hour from now, I am so looking forward to this. Larry Loftus, he's an author who's been on the show a few times, and he writes spy stories that are true, not fiction. And his latest book is called The Princess Spy, and it's one of the most enjoyable things, and certainly one of the most enjoyable nonfiction books I've read in a really long time. I think men would love it. I think women would love it. And if you want to read something really, really fun, then check out The Princess Spy. Oh, I got an early morning listener text. Ross, you are the worst neighbor in the world. You lit up a snowblower at 4 a.m. Wow. I hadn't really thought of it that way. There's probably only one neighbor close enough to me to hear it. And I'm not super happy with that neighbor right now. So I guess I don't mind. Also, here's the way things work. I had some earbuds in, and I was listening to Michael Morell's podcast. You know Morell, former CIA dude who's a frequent guest of the show, and I talk about his podcast, Intelligence Matters, when he's on the show, and I suggest that you should listen to it because it's really good. Well, check it out. I listened to it because it's really good, and I was a couple episodes behind, so I put on the earbuds and was listening to Michael Morell's podcast, and therefore, as far as I know, a Cub Cadet snowblower in operation sounds a lot like Michael Morell. And therefore, I don't really think that would bother the neighbor that much. And I guess that's why. So this is a beautiful thing about my particular snowblower is it sounds like Morell. So who wouldn't want that at 4:30 in the morning or any other time, really? Shannon, you should send me that audio and I can send it to Morell. I think we'd make his day with that. What do you think?
I think Morell's probably a skosh more clandestine than a snowblower, but okay.
Make sure you include that. We'll make Morell's day. An old spy needs a laugh now and then. All right, let's talk a little bit about some Denver stuff. This isn't the best story, but it's an important story. And this is from the Denver Post. It's actually in their opinion section, but it's written by professors of sociology and criminology from multiple universities, including one who's here at CU Boulder. And the headline is, Understanding Denver's Devastating Rise in Homicides in 2020, the largest in at least 5 years. Denver's homicide rate jumped 50% in 2020, more than other large cities. This is an interesting piece. It's an important piece if you live in Colorado, especially, but not only, if you live in Denver. The pandemic, social unrest, and presidential election upended life as usual in 2020 was also an unprecedented and devastating year of violence. It's almost certain that the 2020 rise in homicide rate will go down as the largest on record. Denver bucked the national trend, but in the wrong direction. The city's homicide rate jumped by 50%. There were 95 homicide victims last year compared to 63 in 2019. That's well above the 30% average rise observed by the Council on Criminal Justice in 34 large U.S. cities. And before I continue with the Denver thing, let me just say 30% average rise in homicides in the largest American cities. Are you kidding me? That is an unbelievable number. And Denver's even worse. It's not as if the rest of the country, the rest is doing, wonderfully, and Denver's doing kind of bad, right? The rest of the country is doing badly, and Denver's doing terribly. Why did violence rise so dramatically? Our evidence points to a legitimacy crisis with the criminal justice system. The COVID-19 pandemic, with its cascading consequences, was no doubt important. In fact, it's possible that the legitimacy crisis wouldn't have taken hold as strongly in the pandemic's absence. But the killing of George Floyd, which shocked the conscience of the country, had ramifications that were swift and substantial. Diagnosing the causes of violence requires timely data. Unlike most police departments in the country, Denver's open catalog makes it possible to replace speculation with evidence. And they talk about looking at evidence from 2016 to 2020. Legitimacy crises occur when distrust in the law and its gatekeepers intensifies. Experiencing or witnessing unjust treatment by legal authorities undermines the law's legitimacy. The widely shared video of George Floyd's killing on May 25th showed the police's judge, jury, and executioner. People everywhere, including here in Denver, saw this as reprehensible and took to the streets and the tweets to protest. Let me also just interject here. Every member of law enforcement I know thought that what happened on May 25th was terrible as well. A legitimacy crisis is consequential for 3 reasons. And I think this is one of the very key aspects of this piece that I want to make sure we all hear and think about. The first is depolicing, where officers pull back from proactive policing in response to public criticism. That is definitely happening in and around Denver. That was me, that last sentence. It's not in the article. Second, depleted trust in the law means citizens will think twice about calling the police to report crimes or suspicious behaviors. Lastly, delegitimacy of the law emboldens criminal offending populations as the moral obligation to follow the law is weakened. And we know that's happening too. We've got some good sources in the Aurora Police Department. They tell me about how when they arrest someone for, let's say, stealing a car, that person is typically back out on the street almost immediately and feels no compunction about just stealing another car. And it's part of the reason car theft is up so much. Oh, you know what's up a lot? You might have heard this in the news. The theft of catalytic converters from underneath cars so that, people take them and they sell them for scrap because they have valuable metal in them. Those thefts are up something like 1,600% in the last story that I read about it. I swear I wish it were legal to use lethal force to defend property. I really do. If you could shoot someone who was stealing your car, I think the number of car thefts would be lower. And you may think I'm saying that some kind of chest-beating, braggadocio tough guy. No, I'm just saying it out of my personal sense of justice is that I work every day in order to be able to have a car and have this, that, or the other thing, and so do you. And if someone is going to come take something that I bought, it's like taking part of my life that I spent in order to be able to make the money to earn that thing. And if you're going to take part of my life, I'm going to take part of yours or the rest of yours. And if somebody were stealing my car, I probably wouldn't shoot them, but only because it's illegal for me to not shoot them. If it were legal for me to shoot someone who was stealing my car, I would. I might not shoot, I might not aim to kill. I might just shoot them in the leg. If I'm far enough away where they're not posing a direct threat to me, which of course under current law would make it illegal for me to shoot them, I would. I take property crimes very seriously. In any case, there's more in this story that talks about how crime is up so much in Denver, in Colorado broadly, but especially in Denver. And it doesn't really seem to be COVID-based when it comes to violent crime, but maybe COVID-based when it comes to property crime, since so many cars are just sitting around now. We'll be right back.
This is Denver's Talk Station with Ross Kaminsky now. Tom Martino at 10, 630 KHOW, Denver.